Till you get there, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Keep moving. I've got the thinnest pages in the history of the human race. Holy cow. How to use it, I can't get to a table of contents. I'm gonna get there.
There we go.
All right, I got one. Okay. So it depends on your text. These are, I bet you, these are not the newest translations we're looking at. So mine, for example, divides the New Oxford Annotated Bible divides itself up into what they call, hold on, let me just make double sure. No. This one says the Hebrew Scriptures. It does. And then it says the New Testament. Interesting.
This
So
is
that-
a preface to the New England Bible, introduction of the Old Testament, guide to notes.
Yeah, that's the Old Testament. That's,
But this is from Alex Stewart. World Stewart's husband.
whatever it is, it's old.
That was donated to the church by him,
Okay.
or her.
So anyway, the notion that there's an Old and a New Testament, when Jews were writing the Bible, they weren't thinking, let's write an Old Testament. Right? They were writing what they thought was the Bible, and they called it the Bible, or the Hebrew phrase is Tanakh, but they called it the Bible, and then along came this new group who generated some more Holy Scripture, and part of their teaching was that we have, our Holy Scripture isn't just any old Holy Scripture, it's superseding the previous one, and we've got a new covenant, and in place of what was old, we have something new, and we offer Jesus in place of the old. So the New Testament came to be, and if you want to call your text a New Testament, then you perforce the other one becomes the Old Testament. But if you were in the Jewish community, you'd say, wait a second, when did we get old? This is it. So Jews call this text the Hebrew Bible, and you call the other one the New Testament. And together they form, well, for Christians, they form the Bible. So, okay, but enough said. We're looking in the Hebrew Bible, and our favorite text we've been looking at, remember we had the sheet of quotes. Just in case you misplaced it, I'm gonna make some more copies because I love the quotes.
Where's Ed? Melissa.
He's coming. He's parking.
I may not have
There he
more.
is.
Hold on. Maybe I don't have any more. I only have one. But anyway, these were our favorite quotes.
There's no shit.
No. I think everyone's got them. If not, memorize them.
On both sides here.
So, good morning. So anyway, we have these wonderful quotes.
Good evening.
And these are great quotes, I think, for you to have with you whenever you're thinking text. Maybe the best one was the newest one I found. Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. That is a great, faithful statement. It's a faithful statement. It's just, I love it. Love that text. All right, so we have talked about, what do you tell me? What did we talk about? 2 weeks we've talked about two different parts of Genesis. What were they? I was a very effective leader, wasn't I? Thank God, here they are. We talked about the stories, because there are two stories of creation, and then we talked about the Garden of Eden and the fruit, and we talked about the matter of original sin. We construe it to be original sin, or how do we understand it? And I gave you some Jewish texts at the very end to say that a Jewish reading of this text doesn't incorporate the notion of original sin. It thinks in other ways. But we won't go back over that now. Instead, let's look at, for the third of our 3 sessions, another text. You wanted to look at the story of Cain and Abel. So let's do that, all right? And Cain and Abel takes place in early in the book of Genesis. So we just need to find where it starts. I think it's, I don't know, chapter 4 probably.
4 and 5.
Yeah, chapter 4, verse 1. That's where we're going to start. Okay, so first things first, as was the case last week when we read through the story of Eden and the fruit, I suspected that many of us had not read the text in a long, long, long time. Everybody knows this, you rarely read it. So I think everybody knows on one foot if I said, well, what's the story of Cain and Abel in 2 sentences? Without looking at it, what is it? Cain slayed Abel, that's 1 sentence, that's even better. Okay, so
Sibling
Cain slays
rivalry.
Abel. What's that?
Sibling rivalry.
All right, it is a story of sibling rivalry and Cain kills Abel. Enough. There. Well, let's see. How does, well, let's see. Let's see how it plays itself out. It's not quite that simple. So let's read it first of all, okay? Who's got the translation most of us have? Do you? Go. We'll find out.
The man lay with his wife.
That is not the translation most of us have.
Cain said to his brother Abel.
No, chapter 4, verse 1. I'm sorry, I don't think it is.
Where are we?
I don't know. Chapter 4 of Genesis. Oh,
No, Adam knew Eve.
yeah, that, you know what, read this, let's read this one, go.
Okay. All right, the man lay with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, with the help of the Lord, I brought a man into being. Afterwards, she had another child, his brother Abel. And Abel was a shepherd, and Cain a tiller of the soil. The day came when Cain brought some of the produce of the soil as a gift to the Lord. And Abel brought some of the firstborn of his flock, the fat portions of them. The Lord received Abel and his gift with favor, but Cain and his gift he did not receive. Cain was very angry, and his face fell. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you so angry and cast down? If you do well, you are accepted. If not, sin is a demon crouching at the door. It shall be eager for you, and you will be mastered by it. So, you want me to continue?
I don't know. Should we stop there?
Then 7, that's like the entire first paragraph.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I think we should go on.
Who's in charge?
Let's go on. Someone else read, come on, we should go on, that's not quite it.
Cain said to his brother Abel, let us go into the open country. While they were there, Cain attacked his brother Abel and murdered him. Then the Lord said to Cain, where is your brother Abel? Cain answered, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? The Lord said, what have you done? Hark, your brother's blood that has been shed is crying out to me from the ground. Now you are accursed and banished from the ground, which has opened its mouth wide to receive your brother's blood which you have shed. When you till the ground, it will no longer yield you its wealth. You shall be a vagrant and a wanderer on earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is heavier than I can bear. Thou hast driven me today from the ground, and I must hide myself from thy presence. I shall be a vagrant and a wanderer on earth, and anyone who meets me can kill me. The Lord answered him, no, if anyone kills Cain, Cain shall be avenged sevenfold. So the Lord put a mark on Cain in order that anyone meeting him should not kill him. Then Cain went out from the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, to the east of Eden.
Perfect, okay, let's stop there, thank you. All right, so what's the story about? I know Cain kills Abel, but what other facets of it, anything jump out at you as we read it? Because we want to read it seriously, remember? Not literally, but we do want to read it seriously. So what's in here to be seen, or questioned, or thought about?
Jealousy.
Remorse.
Cain is remorseful for his actions.
Is he?
didn't see that.
No, that's right.
Jealousy.
Well, wait a second, let's talk about remorse. Where is there?
Saying because after the fact, when God challenges him, saying you killed your brother, you spilled the blood, he says, this is more than I can bear. I'll let anybody kill me. I think he.
Whoa. Why does he say this is more than I can bear? Take a close look. When does he say that?
Well, for after God challenges him, says, what have you done
What
to your
verse?
brother?
What verse?
Well,
This is more than I-
13, verse 13.
13.
My punishment is heavier than I can bear. Thou hast driven me today from the ground, I must hide myself in thy presence.
Well, why is that remorse?
Well, you do something bad, you feel bad about it, that's what I'm saying.
Where, is he feeling bad about it?
No.
No.
He's scared,
He's mad.
What?
he's scared. He acknowledges that he's sinned.
Where?
Well, he said he's gonna be evicted, they can kill me, he's not facing it.
But he's not saying, I've sinned.
Well, he's not saying it because he probably didn't understand what sin is.
I think you're jumping, I think he might have figured out something went wrong.
Yeah.
Take a look, I think you're reading into it. Does anybody else see that? Any remorse on the part of Cain?
Maybe it was the wrong word.
Remorse means he feels sorry.
Sorry, he's being punished.
I think he's
Sorry, he's been
himself.
punished.
Yeah.
He feels sorry for himself, not sorry for what he
I
did.
think
Sorry, he got caught.
Yeah.
I think he feels fear from God.
Yes, he's frightened and he's concerned that I got caught.
He's been told he'll be a fugitive.
No. I think
Well, I mean,
He's been told he'll be.
I don't think I feels he got caught. I sort of must figure out he messed up.
He's been told he'd be a fugitive and a wanderer forever on earth. It said that,
Yes. But I think he thinks, oh, nuts, that's no fun. I don't think he's feeling very remorseful. But there is jealousy here.
That's what I think.
So that's what you think. Who's jealous of what?
Cain's jealous.
Okay, do we have that actually said anywhere? I don't think the word jealous comes out, does it?
No.
All we have here,
Definitely true.
oh, that's okay. Verse 5.
Yeah, verse 5.
Now, let's listen to some translations we have here. Verse 5 says, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. That's God had no regard. And then it says, so Cain was very angry. That's what my text says.
Yeah.
What?
And his countenance or his face fell.
Is that what your translation says?
His countenance here.
His countenance fell. Does anybody else have another translation?
Basically, Cain was very angry and his face fell.
Yeah.
Cain was very angry, his face fell. Let's look at this translation, which is a Hebrew translation. It's verse 4. What do we say? Verse
5.
5. The Lord paid heed to Abel, but to Cain his offering he paid no heed. Oh, this one says Cain was very much distressed. That's different.
This one said he's dejected. This one said he's dejected.
Oh, do you know how many translate? Now I got distressed, dejected, angry.
I agree.
They're really, anger is not the same as distressed.
This says angry and distressed.
Oh, yours, who's says?
Angry and dejected.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm hearing dejected,
Yeah,
and I got
yeah.
distressed, disappointed could be added. So you have to be really careful here as to what's happening exactly. Well, we know Cain is not happy, but the question is he distressed? Anger is one thing, distressed is another, disappointed. Was that?
Angry and cast down.
Whew. Well, we got a lot of translations running here. Anger, distress, disappointed. I wrote down another couple of adjectives. It's got to be one of those. Although this translation's commentary says the translator here is sure it's not anger because it comes from another root in Hebrew. So he challenges it's not anger. That's when he chooses distressed. Either way, he seems to be jealous, though, doesn't he? Is that right?
Well, maybe that isn't the right word, but his ego, obviously, he's very, his selfishness, maybe, instead of, I don't know, he's thinking about himself, he's, that,
He feels rejected.
yeah.
Well, he is rejected, in fact.
But why is he rejected? Why is he rejected? That's what I want to know.
Me too. What do you think?
Because Abel brings in a fatted calf or whatever, and then he brings in all of his hard labor from the fields, nice fruit, nice whatever, and he says no.
It's a Mediterranean diet. It's much safer. Wait a second. This is the beginning of the Mediterranean diet. Cain is dissed. That is true. We do not know what is it about Abel's sacrifice that is preferable.
So he's confused, and then the Lord says, why are you angry? Why are you confused? I guess he's asking.
Where did God say that?
Well, I'm just trying to What I'm translating, but verse 6, why art thou wroth is what I have here.
Yeah.
Because
Why you
did you, yeah, she didn't accept.
All right, so this doesn't make any sense to, if you really think about it, there's something we're not seeing here, right? It's almost as if there's another story here.
Another story,
We
a couple
don't
of
know.
lines were missing.
What's that?
A couple of lines were missing somewhere.
There are lines missing in this text, and they've all been filled in here.
But isn't, I mean, during this time,
Verse
wasn't
8.
the fatted calf, wasn't a fatted calf the sacrifice to make?
I don't know.
I mean, it
I don't think so.
doesn't say it this early in the Bible, but I know later on it's.
Yeah, but there,
talks
later
a
on,
lot
offerings are
about
brought,
fatted
which are grains and stuff like that. So either kind of grain, either kind of offering would go. I'll tell you where the actual text has all been filled in here. I can't believe it, because I was just reading that, wait, where's the missing? Verse 8. If you read, I'll read my verse 8, and it may be the same as yours. My verse 8 says, Cain says to his brother Abel, let us go out to the field. So what else, what have you got for your verse 8?
In the open country.
Oh,
Mine's a field.
anything else?
In the field.
Okay, I have a footnote which I can barely read. It says, I can't even understand what it says.
That is life for some of the firstborn.
Now, it's a little O. Does anybody have any footnote near there? That verse?
Not on 8.
It just says,
Nothing I can see.
text does not have, let's go out to the field.
Oh. What does your text say? What does it, verse 8 read in yours, Donna? What,
Let's go out to the field.
and then your footnote says,
That the Samaritan Pentateuch, Septuagint, Vulgate, and Syrian Masoretic text does not have let's go out to the field.
that's correct. The original reads as follows.
The
Verse
original.
8. Verse 8.
Is there such a thing as the original?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Have we seen
Mine-
it?
mine is something
What?
about
Have we
Hebrew.
seen it?
Early, I can tell you the historic text. I can't tell you the original.
Mine
The
is something
historic
about-
text reads as follows in Hebrew. Well, it doesn't think I'll translate it. Cain said to his brother Abel, that's it.
Yeah, well, that's my kind of
say
thing. And
anything.
Cain talked with his brother, with Abel, his brother, colon, and then it goes, and it came to pass when they were in the field.
Right.
Well, there's
So-
something missing.
Yeah, there is something missing, and almost all the translations have slid
I bet he
in.
swear.
Let us
he
go out to
swore.
the field.
Look at- look
But-
at Hebrew,
And then they took it out.
Hebrew O&M.
Hebrew O-M where? That is life. Oh, Hebrew O-M. Oh.
It says-
Oh, Hebrew is omitted. Hebrew's omitted. Maybe. So all I'm saying is, someone had said, I suggested, maybe there's a story we don't know as to why Cain and Abel's offerings are not treated the same way. But I'm telling you for sure, this is the only time I know of in the Hebrew Bible, where there's actually, you could tell there's something missing. It says, Cain said to his brother, and when they were in the field.
Yeah.
So it's, what he says is omitted.
I think he swore.
I don't think so.
PG.
Yeah. So
Censor's
all of these texts don't want to let that happen, so they fill it in. Let's go out to the field. But it's much more intriguing to imagine, what did Cain say to his brother? So we have a few questions. If you read the text as it is, you wonder, why is one offering more preferable than more preferred than the other? And there's no explanation in the text. And now to add insult to injury, turns out that verse 8, whatever Cain does say to Abel is not actually recorded, which means it's not recorded. Which means we're left wondering, what did he say? How would he, what did he say? So what do you think Cain might have said to Abel, if you had to imagine? Assuming he didn't say, let's go out to the field. What did he could have said, let's go out to the field. I mean, that does, because the next line is they were in the field. But what else do you imagine Cain might have said to Abel? Take a look and think.
How do you rate?
Say it more loud.
How do you rate?
Meaning what?
Meaning, how come your sacrifice was accepted and mine was
Exact. Cain could
rejected?
definitely have said, wait a second.
I'm the oldest.
Oh, that's adding something. Cain could have said, why did your sacrifice offering get accepted and mine not? Or he could have said,
I'm the older, I should be first with God. That was
exactly, which is the same but a little bit different. One could just be, how come yours got accepted and mine didn't? The other could be, I'm the oldest, mine should have been accepted for sure. Anything else that he could have said? I'm not fishing now, but just sort of wondering, do you think, what else could Cain have said? Mama always loved you best. Now God. Actually, there's evidence for that. Do you want to take a look earlier? We just read over it so quickly you didn't see it. But watch when the boys are born. What does it say? Now the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Canaan, saying, I have produced a man with the help of the Lord. Next she bore his brother Abel. Why'd you laugh?
Well, because it's funny. What's funny, I know. Well, it's the second, having been the second child, you know, there are never as many pictures in the baby book or collections of things, you know. The first child is always favored.
Now, how does that come out here? It's not said clearly, but how does it come out? How does that reality come out?
It says here that she didn't give the Lord acclamation for delivering Abel. She just said, I had another child.
And in fact identifies him how? As
His brother.
his brother. So Abel comes into the world. In the first instance, Cain is born, and Eve gives thanks and makes something of it, right?
Right.
Another child comes along, and it doesn't just say, then she had a second child. It actually says, and then, next she bore his brother Abel. So Abel is introduced as Cain's brother. Yeah, it doesn't say next she bore a child by the name of Abel. That's next she bore his brother, who happens to have been Abel. It's really a huge difference. And by the way, in Hebrew, Hevel is his name, which means mist or nothingness.
Oh.
So his name is Hevel, which means nobody. Next she bore a nobody. So, why did I say this?
Because Cain was pretty upset that nobody got credit. He didn't.
Yeah, actually, he could have said,
I'm the
far from me, I said, you're a mama's boy, mama always liked you best. On the contrary, he could have said, from the beginning you've been nobody, and how could this now happen? Because Hevel was his name. Whoa! Anything else that could have been said by the boys left to their own devices? One sacrifice or offering is accepted, the others isn't. Cain turns to Abel and says, I could kill you. That's what he could say. Or he could say, this isn't fair, which is like saying, why you and not me, and all that. So you see, there's a lot going on here. Now, we do know, nonetheless, no matter what happens, Cain goes out there, and Cain does kill his brother, which is the part we remember the most, because he kills his brother. But then comes this great, great moment for God. And what does God do?
Levels of dreadful punishment on him.
Wait, I can't hear you. What?
No, well, he said, you know, that he was going to let somebody shoot him, but the Lord said no, that he was.
They put the mark on him to protect him.
Right.
Exactly, but just before that, what does God do? Right after the murder, what is God's first action?
Oh, he asked him what he did. He said, where is your brother?
Yes! He asks him, he doesn't have to say, what did you do, even? It's better. Why does he say, where's your brother Abel? And not say, does he say, what have you done? He does say that in a minute.
See if Cain will
Yeah.
admit what he done.
Exactly. This is just like last week. What's God's response after Adam and Eve eat the fruit? What does he do? He says,
Why are you hiding?
yeah, where are you? Right? Where are you? And why does he say that to Adam? Back there.
To engage him in conversation.
right? And he allows Adam the chance maybe to say, I messed up. But what does Adam do instead?
Blames his wife.
He blames his wife and the snake.
Ever the same.
So it was, God there said, where are you? And it's like an open-ended question. Adam can answer it any way he wants. And here's the famous question, more so, where's your brother Abel? And Cain, what does Cain say? Oh, Cain is even better. He lies. And he comes back with another question.
And my brother's keeper.
Wow, wow. Now, I once heard it said that the most important line in the entire Hebrew Bible is, not this, but where are you? I didn't say that last week, but while we're thinking about it, the most important line in the Hebrew Bible is, where are you? Because that's the question God asks all the time of every person. It's not just Adam, but God's always asking, where are you in your life? That's the question. And if you can't answer, where are you, with a clear conscience, then you have not got it right. It's a great notion. Where are you? And here is a secondary question, I guess. Where's your brother Abel? It's just a little more specific, so that's why it's not general enough. Where are you? Works all the time for all of us, anywhere. Where's your brother Abel? Isn't quite the same. But am I my brother's keeper? That is a good one. And we know the answer. So we know what happens then. He's punished, and that's the sort of the end of the story. But I'm kind of intrigued to know what did go on in between the two guys, right? And I think it's just amazing, and I have no reason to understand this. How is it that the text, the historic text, leaves it open? It's nowhere else in the Hebrew Bible where such a thing happens. So let's look at some proposals for what might have been said. These come out of Jewish tradition. So let's take a look. I have a number of them. We may not make it, so we have two up here for us guys. So.
At the end of the table, you might miss out. Very close.
Are we all set? Okay, so here, the first dialogue, if you go down about halfway through the page, it says it comes from something called Targum Yonatan, Pseudo-Jonathan. That's like 2nd, 3rd century text, which is kind of like a commentary on the book of Genesis, Jewish commentary. And what the guy is doing here is filling in verse 8. It says, Cain said, but we don't know. So this guy fills in what might have happened in that intervening verse. Someone want to read it?
Cain said to Abel, his brother, come. They went outside.
And when, sir?
And when they got outside, Cain said to Abel, I look at the world and see that it was created with mercy. But people are not paid back according to the fruits of their deeds, and there is favoritism in justice. Otherwise, why was your offering accepted and my offering not accepted? Abel answered, the world was created with mercy, and people are repaid according to the fruits of their deed. There is no favoritism in justice. The fruits of my deeds were better than yours and earlier, and that's why my offering was accepted.
So what's the argument that Cain proffers? And Abel disagrees.
He says that there's favoritism in justice. He says that everyone should be equal in terms of, I interpreted that fantastic thing. Abel says, no, I was there first. Mine were offered first. And yours were late, so there.
So what's this mercy justice conversation they're having? It's not quite clear to me yet. Let someone else have a shot at it.
Oh, yeah.
They both agree the world was created with mercy, and people are repaid.
Or not.
Well,
Or what,
Cain
Cain says not.
Yeah, so take it, so, the world was created with mercy, they both agree about that. Cain says, but it isn't fair. People are not paid back according to the fruits of their deeds. Abel says, yes, they are paid back. And then Cain says, there's favoritism and justice. And the other guy says there's no favoritism and justice. I'm not 100% sure what that means. We know they're arguing over whether the world is fair. And Cain says, it isn't fair. God has been favored. The world may be created, but it's not been, the world's created with mercy. That's why we're allowed to be here, because we're all such a mess. We're allowed to be here. But then Cain says, but I don't think it's not a fair world. And I think, in fact, I think he's saying there's favoritism and justice. God has favorites. And I think God favored you. There's no logical reason for this to have happened.
Yeah, they will say, God didn't favor me, I just had a better offer.
I did, yes, I think that's it. Yes. It's not like God favored me for just arbitrarily.
Yeah.
But I was better than you. I brought better stuff than you did. It's objectively so.
Why laughing, Pat?
And earlier when in the reading it said Cain brought his first. At least in verse 3. Cain brought it, then Abel came up. So I'm not sure what that means.
When we first started reading this commentary, I started to wonder if there was something in here about the heart of the giver. That's not really talked about. Like giving grudgingly versus giving with your whole heart.
Say more.
Maybe Cain gave because he felt required or he was supposed to, but Abel actually gave from his heart.
Now that's nowhere in the text. But what we're reading right now is not in the text either. Let's hold that one, okay?
Yeah, I was just wondering if the commentary was going to go there.
Well, I don't know. Let's see. Right now they're arguing about whether there is or is not justice.
Careful, Linda.
Whether there is or is not justice. And Cain says, this is unjust. Abel says, are you kidding me? This is as just as could be. On the face of it, I worked harder and I brought better stuff. It's completely objectively fair. Let's keep going.
Cain answered Abel, there is no judge and no justice and no world to come and no reward for the righteous and no punishment for the wicked. Abel answered Cain, there is a judge and there is justice and there is a world to come and there is reward for the righteous and punishment for the wicked.
And during this discussion...
They began arguing, or they continued arguing?
Yeah, they began arguing. The rest is history, because this gets a little heated. So you see, this commentary is imagining that they were not... This is big stuff they were ultimately going after. It's huge stuff, which is what? They're verging over into a conversation about what? God, faith, and... Well, Cain says there's no judge. Cain says there's no such thing as God.
He found out, didn't he?
Pardon me?
He found out there wasn't.
Oh yeah, oops, I guess that wasn't right. But that's the suggestion here, that what they were having was an ultimate, that the little conversation about whose offering gets accepted soon mushrooms into a huge conversation. The whole world is unfair, to which Cain just says, unfair, that's because there's no God. That's a pretty huge piece.
God showed favoritism in the book.
Favoritism, or?
He did not respect.
He did not respect Cain's offering. Why?
Well,
was it about Cain's offering? And this commentary shows that he didn't give it for his love of God and his faith. He gave it
It's obligation.
because it was some sort of obligation. So it was like God knew their hearts before, as they were giving the gift.
everybody, do you buy that? I don't.
I don't much.
This is what this is called, this material is called, we've used this term before, I'll put it up here. When there are, as it were, holes in the text, or there are pauses or pieces that are just a little too general, Jewish tradition develops a tradition of something called midrash, which is filling in the blanks. The art of filling in the blanks, that's midrash. Midrash fills in the blanks. I'll give you the classic example of a midrash is, Abraham is introduced in a few chapters, and he's commonly understood to be the first Jewish person, and he believes in one God. But there's no reference to the fact that he believes in one God in Genesis chapter 12. It doesn't say Abraham is the first guy to believe in one God. It doesn't say that. He just gets introduced with his family and all that stuff. And everybody knows after the fact who he's supposed to be and what he's supposed to have done, but it's sort of not spelled out. So Jewish tradition creates a midrash. And the midrash says that Abraham's father, whose name was Terah, which name is given in Genesis 11, was an idol maker. And Abraham was a bit skeptical about this whole idol thing. So one day when Terah went out of the idol shop, he said to Abraham, take care of the idols. And he went away. And Abraham knocked over one of the idols in his father's absence. When his father came back, his father said, what happened? And Abraham said, well, I'll tell you what happened. The idols began to argue about which was the greater one. And that one over there pushed this one over there down. And his father said to him, they're just statues, Abraham. They can't do that. To which Abraham said, that's what I think too. And that midrash is one of the famous stories about Abraham challenging the notion of idolatry and surmising that there was more to it than just these clay figurines. That's a midrash, right? Where the book of Genesis doesn't tell you about Abraham and his struggles to find God. And that's one midrash. There are many about Abraham doing things like this. So similarly here, this is a midrash which is just filling in the blanks of verse 8. We don't know what they argued about. So this author imagines that they argued about the biggest things, faith and justice. And that was the source of the argument. Not bad if it really becomes that. I kind of like this, that ultimately they argue about faith and justice, and Cain says there's no such thing. Now, the question would be, if we knew more about Targum Yonatan, why the author wrote this. What was he dealing with so that he imagined this would be an argument somebody would have? But we don't know that. It's kind of an anonymous text almost. We don't know the history of the guy who wrote it. But you can see somebody having, this is an argument that's worth having. Is there really a God in the universe who deals with us? It's a good argument. So I think I'd rather have your midrash, Donna, be a completely independent one. So write it now.
Midrash class.
So your midrash would be, let's help her write it. All right, it starts like what? You said it had to do with motive, right? That Cain, tell me again, what was the midrash?
Their heart from giving, in the act of giving, where was their heart?
All right, so what you would do, you'd have then, you might have to write it right in before verse 8. So you here, where is it here? Verse 3.
Cain.
In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel for his part brought of the firstlings of the flock, their fat portion. So where do you get that it's got to do with one's having more devotion, one not? You just making it up?
No, I'm looking at the earlier
She's doing the
verses
midrash.
where God didn't accept the offering of Cain. Why?
Oh, so then God doesn't accept it, and you're imagining, because God...
And God knows everything and knows what's in people's hearts when they give. And so there must be some reason, and that's why I'm thinking it's related to what was in their heart.
Okay, so then the midrash would begin, So God doesn't accept it. Cain has to say, this isn't fair. And then Abel says, come on, it's not a question of fairness, it's a question of why you did what you did.
Yeah, or something like that.
I don't think your offering was genuine. Abel's gonna get in trouble on this one.
Yeah.
And then Cain says, what do you mean it wasn't genuine? I gave it first. All right, we're gonna play this out. Here we go. I'm Cain, you're Abel. Okay, ready? Or does somebody else want to be Abel? Somebody else want to be Cain?
Go ahead, Donna.
All right, Donna, so we'll start again. So
You
the
get to end it, Kate.
Let's go to the field. Stand right near them.
Let's go out to the field, that'll end that.
What field?
Don't fall into the pit.
Now, all right, so Abel was a keeper, Cain brought an offering, Abel brought an offering, and the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was angry or distressed.
Distressed.
You know, Abel, I thought that what I brought today was just a beautiful offering, and I can't believe it wasn't accepted.
Cain, it seems to
Was
be
it the best of your flock? Or did you just go and pick any old sheep from the flock?
Actually, Cain didn't bring a fatted calf, he brought fruit.
No, I'm the fruit guy.
Oh.
So you can start again on that one.
Was it the best of your fruit? Was it the first of your fruit? The one that you were dying to eat because it was the first time that you've had grapes since last year? Did you give that from your heart to the Lord who created all things and us?
Well, I could mess you up and say, yes, it was. Let me just think if I should say that, though, because I know what you say. Well, you think I'm going to say. I've got to say because you're boxing me in. Well, hang on. Well.
Oh, you're a murderer.
Yeah. Well. Let's make it olives. No, it could have been grapes too, because they had wine. Well, it was what was close. It was the best on the tree that was close. It was the best on the tree I saw.
It was still the best. It was the best of the tree that he saw. How could it be better?
Come on.
He's deceiving himself.
Oh, but the answer to that is the tree that you saw. How many trees do you have? 10. I got 10 olive trees. Olive trees. I have 10 olive trees, to which you say, but the one closest to your house isn't. You've always told me it's not always the best. It's the one third down. And I'll say, yeah, I guess so. And then you say, Cain, you're always doing that, taking shortcuts, right?
That's right.
And then I say, what do you mean by that? And you say,
and you can get away with whatever you want to do because you think you're better. And our mother always loved you more.
And then, well, I guess it could be, yes, that maybe Cain brings something that's not as dear to him as Abel does. It's not in the text, but it's good midrash.
I'm wondering
what?
why would God act what appears to us to be unfair? There has to be a reason.
Right, well, I'm not disagreeing with you that maybe that's a very nice reading, a midrash. The text is very staccato, it just doesn't tell us that.
Yeah.
Right. So we have,
What does what the Lord said to Cain have to do with all
with-
this? Because
Speak up.
the latter, what the Lord said to Cain when he rejected his offering have to do with this?
you're referring to what I was hoping you wouldn't. Verse 6, which I can't figure out. It's really opaque. God's answer is really, really difficult there. God says, here's the translation I've got, why are you angry or distressed or disappointed? Why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door, its desire is for you, but you must master it. I don't know what the heck that means. I'm not sure what it means. Right? So let's skip it. No?
It fits into what we were just talking about.
How so?
God
Wait,
knew
resolution.
that there was something about Cain's offering that was not right. We don't know what it is, but God is saying.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go, I like that, what you suggest, that it may be Cain's,
Heart.
Cain's heart, that it's not given with a whole heart.
What does the name Cain signify?
Cain, well, it seems to be, wait, I'll read it for you, wait a second.
Relish.
What?
No,
No,
no, no.
No, it comes from,
Yours and
it's,
mustard.
it's, in, here they don't here they translate, you got the same thing? I have produced a man with the help of the Lord.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, the translation I have here, in this Hebrew translation, is, I've gained a male child with the help of the Lord. It seems to be, it comes from the root, I've acquired, I've gained, I've made. What does it say again? I have, what does she say? Oh, I've produced, yeah, I've produced, or I've made a man with the help of the Lord. That's what it means.
Because sometimes the names are kind of a clue to the deeper meaning of the story.
Well,
It was Abel,
what-
about Cain?
no, it's
That
Cain.
was Cain.
That's
That
Cain.
was Cain.
I have made, because it says right here, I've made a child. Well, one commentary I read suggests that the problem is that Cain, yes, look what it says. I produced a man with the help of the Lord. That the problem starts actually with Eve. That she takes ownership and sort of suggests that just like God made Adam,
I made man.
yes, I have made a man, and she doesn't ever treat him like a little one or a toddler or whatever, but she always treats him as Mr. Perfect. He's a man when he's just a little infant, and he can never do any wrong. And so that commentary says the problem is that Cain thought he was top dog, and believed it, and from the get-go, even raised him that way. And there's no wonder that when he ran into this first disappointment, that his great offering wasn't accepted, that's what really teed him off. Because he was so full of himself, believing that from the beginning, Eve had treated him like a man, and had considered her great work. As God made Adam, I have made this. And this is wonderful. So so we've got one midrash. Let's look at the next one, okay? So one goes quite far afield and suggests it's not something we ever thought of. It's nothing to do with the sacrifices. It's that Cain just considers there's no God at all. And after that, why wouldn't he go out and kill Abel? Actually, why wouldn't he kill Abel? Because there's no justice, no right, no wrong. And he is so full of himself, even going back to the beginning, that he thinks, I am the world. There is nothing above me or whatever. That's who I am. That's it. Ooh. All right, here's another one altogether. It's something from Genesis Rabbah, see down below? That's another commentary, like 3rd, 4th century commentary. So Cain said to his brother Abel, now, and when they were in the field. Now here they're picking up in verse 8, which doesn't tell you what Cain actually said. So the Midrash asks, what were they arguing about? They said, now, together they said, someone want to read it?
Come, let us divide the world.
Go ahead.
One took the lands, and the other took the movables. One said, the land on which you are standing is mine. And the other replied, the clothes you are wearing are mine. One said, take them off. The other said, get off. In the course of this, Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him.
All right, what was the nature of their argument?
Material.
Pardon me?
Materialism.
Yes, material. Who owns what? Who owns more? Who has more power? Karl Marx. It all starts from ownership of goods, right? And one owns the land, and one owns the stuff on the land, and it's just it's a great thought that maybe that's the root of. Well, I'm serious. Karl Marx says that the root of all problem is property. When people own property, one has his and one has hers, and they fight over property. So here's a very early Marxian commentary. The source of the problem wasn't the offering at all, but it's something beyond that. It had to do with ownership. And that is not a bad, now, yeah, so that's one argument. Let's do the next one.
Yeah, but materialism started this far back.
Well, this is a suggestion. Suggestion. Yes, go ahead.
Rabbi Josiah said, both took lands and both took movables. What were
So let me just interpret that. Joshua has heard this previous argument in which we're told one took movables, one took land. Joshua said, nah, they both had movables, they both had, that's not the issue. They both had land of their own, they both had clothes, and carts and everything. So that's not the argument. So go ahead, they argued about something else.
But what were they disputing? One said, in my domain shall the temple be built. The other said, in my domain shall the temple be built.
All right, so what's the argument about?
Putting the church on my land versus the church on your land.
Exactly, so it's not about, well, so it's a slightly different argument then.
Yeah,
So what's the word to describe that argument?
Competition.
Over what though?
God's love.
Well, maybe it's something having to do with God's love, yeah.
Property rights.
That's the first one. They already argued over property rights. The land's mine, get out, get off. The clothes are mine, take them off. Now they're not arguing about property rights per se, not ownership, but proximity. It's proximity to God.
Yeah.
They're arguing about something that's a little bit different, right? They're arguing about who's got access to God, or who will have access to God. Where's the temple going to be built? It's going to be built on my land or your land, in which case I've got more power than you've got, or I've got a closer connection to God. It's a spiritual thing, I think. They're arguing about who's closer to God. This sounds more like the original text, right? That Cain could have said, I'm closer to God. Abel would have said, no, I'm closer to God. So here it's being magnified to say, where's the temple going to be built? They're not talking about where the church is going to be built. They're talking about the temple, Solomon's temple. Where's it going to be built? We'll skip the proof text. And then the last guy says, Yehuda bar Ami said, nah. What were they disputing over?
Eve.
Eve. Now, what does that mean?
Your mother's love?
I think so. Or it could be that they were disputing over another woman.
Whose name was Eve?
Yes, whose name could have been Eve, and they were disputing over a woman. And that's what it was all. It's all about sexual sex.
Woman again.
And that actually sounds very believable. Because remember, the text doesn't say what they're arguing about. So what's the what's the problem? Is it sex? Is it religion, or is it materialism? Which is the bigger problem? Or I could be all of them. Could be all of them, but it all depends where you want to go with it, right? And it could be an argument over any one of those, which could have occasioned the first major sin, or the first murder. That's why I think they are willing to devote so much attention, because the consequence of the argument is huge. It's murder. And you've got to figure, if there's a murder, there better be a good reason. So is it because of religion that they're arguing and leads to murder? Is it just possessions that they're leading? Is it sex that leads to that? Or is it this notion that there's no God that leads to that? I mean, what causes wars? What caused the Civil War? Was it slavery, or was it economic issues regarding the North and the South? All of the above, I know. All right, now, we got one more to look at. Cain said to his brother Abel. Now, we don't know what he said, but Rashi is a medieval commentary who says, he picked a quarrel with him in order to find cause to kill him. There are midrashic explanations, but this is the plain meaning of the verse. They were two brothers, and it was sibling rivalry. And he didn't have to say anything. He was just looking for any excuse, and he was going to get rid of them.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's it. Now, I don't know which you're going to like better, or which you're going to do better. We know the ultimate issue is, where am I my brother's keeper? Wait, where did he ask him? Wait, what's the question? Where's your brother Abel, right? Where's your brother Abel, and am I my brother's keeper? That's what comes down to us over the ages. But this is like, what is going on in this text? It's kind of much more mysterious than you might otherwise think.
Part of it also was this ancient argument over whether the keeper of the soil or the keeper of the flocks. is preferable. There's a rivalry in history between the two.
There is, which doesn't seem to play out here much, but we know that historically speaking, there is such a thing, and it's sung about in the musical Oklahoma. What's the song?
Farmer and the cowman should be.
Oh, the farmer and the cowman should be friends. Oh, the farmer and the cowman should be friends. One man likes to pull a cow.
One left push the plow with ease, the other gives them butter and cheese.
And that's no reason why they can't be friends. Territory folks should stick together. Territory folks should stick together. Territory folks should stick together. Territory folks should all be friends. Isn't that the song? I hope some of you know that song, right? Do you not know that song? It's not one of the more famous songs, but those of us who have been studying Rocky St. Hammerstein of late are familiar with it. What's a more favorite song from Oklahoma? Just so we know.
Oklahoma, where the
wind comes right from the right, or
Oh, what a beautiful morning.
Oh, what a beautiful morning, or when I take you out of the Surrey.
Yeah.
Don't say, people will say we're in love. There's one more song. Oh, poor John is dead. Poor John is dead. I think that's enough of these songs. But in the musical, that issue comes up, that there are farmers and there are cowhands, and they do not get along. And it's a story of the West in part, right?
But it also reappears in the story of Jacob's sons, or Jacob and Esau, I mean.
How so, Jacob and Esau?
One of them is the tiller of the field, and the other is.
I don't know. You
The
think
other
so?
is a, yeah, I think so. That's what they taught me in seminary.
Oh, I don't remember that about Esau, because Jacob would be the shepherd. Jacob would be the shepherd then, so maybe Esau was the tiller of the field. We don't have to listen. Let's say it is so. Let's say it is so, if it shows up. And there's some distinction when the Israelites come to Canaan, come to Egypt rather. There's an issue about whether are they shepherds or not when they get there. There's an issue about that stuff. But let's go back to our text right here. I want to look at a poem at the bottom. Just before the poem. Don't look at the poem. Do not look. Stop. I have to ask you two questions, then we'll look at the poem. Okay. Is Cain Jewish? Are Cain and Abel Jewish?
No. It's before Abraham.
Exactly. So Cain and Abel are Jewish, Adam and Eve are Jewish, Noah's not Jewish. Why is this material in the Hebrew Bible? What's it doing here?
They're Jewish adjacent.
They're what?
They're Jewish adjacent.
They're close to.
They're close, yeah, it's part of it. In order to understand Abraham, you have to have this context. You need to see who God is, how God plays out with these other people.
Okay. But wouldn't it have been better to start with some of these midrash things on Abraham? Tell some stories of that. That would have been a good filler. There's no doubt the opening chapters introduce God as judge of the universe, as a guy who rewards and punishments, who creates the universe. Why else do you suspect? So what else? Why do you have this, essentially what's a prologue? Because the story is Abraham's story. After that, you never look back. So what's it doing here?
Gotta start somewhere.
You do have to start somewhere. Why here then?
It gives credence to what they're trying to teach.
I guess. It's a good question though, isn't it? I mean, it could have started with Abraham. It would have been fine to have started with Abraham. I think it would have worked.
But then how would we understand how the universe was created and where the universe came from? We started with Abraham.
That would be a bit of a problem. But would it matter?
Yes.
How important is it to faith in Jesus that God made the universe 45 books earlier? I'm not being facetious. Or you maybe can't separate it because everybody knows the beginning.
Well, without the knowledge that God made the universe, when they said Jesus was the Son of God, how would we know who God is? If
How you figure it out?
No.
You'd figure it out for the rest of the Hebrew Bible. You wouldn't know
But
the
if we
creator
started-
part.
When we started with Abraham,
But God interacts all along after that too. I'm being a little difficult. It's as if, I think it's as if there's the Hebrew Bible begins with a universal palette and then goes particular. It's like a big funnel, as it were. It begins like this with the whole universe, heaven and earth, and God is creator, and it's the whole universe. And then what it really does is it narrows it down to one family, and then it tells the story of one family. And it does have to establish if there's a creator, and you do meet God in certain ways. You also find the first, you also through the story of Eden learn why we aren't in Eden. It does explain why are we not in Eden, why are things the way, and why are things as messed up as they are. Actually, is what it explains. It explains how we got. What did Laurel and Hardy say?
Laurel and Hardy.
Yes.
Another fine mess you've got.
Well, who said to which?
It's usually Oliver saying it's a Stanley.
Stanley. Yeah.
So Hardy said to Laurel, "Look what a fine mess
You've got me. Another fine mess
This is
you've
another
got
fine
me.
mess you've gotten me into.
Okay, so that's why we have the opening 11 chapters, so we can know how do we get into this mess. Well, here's the opening part, and Abraham's our last best chance to get out of this thing.
Okay.
And we're going to follow the story of Abraham to figure out how do we get out of this mess.
Okay,
Because
so,
now we're in a mess, so how do we get out of the mess? It starts with the big funnel. I think to some extent that's how it is. I know what you said, of course, but to some extent I think that may be what's happening here. It all gets narrowed down. There are actually 10 generations from Adam to Noah when God starts again, and then 10 generations from Noah to Abraham when God starts again. It's set up that way to suggest God tried once, then twice, and then said, I can't do it with everybody, I'll do it with one guy in his family, and let's see how this works out.
okay, so this is the beginning, the first part, you just got the universe and everything. So the murder of Abel by Cain, was that the original sin?
No.
That's the
No.
first
Oh, the
word.
first, why are you asking that?
Well, you were talking about this is another fine mess you got me into. And it just,
Well,
you know, how did we get into this mess? You know, suggesting, you know, this sin, that wasn't the original sin? Oh, no, the original sin was Adam eating the
yes,
apple.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so we
That was
got,
Eve's fault, because they gave it to her.
but it doesn't matter, that doesn't matter as much as we got into the sin. We're in we live in an unredeemed world. You'd have to be pretty clueless to miss that one, right? We live in a broken world. Won't use that other word. We live in a broken world. So I think the first 11 chapters try to set up for us how to get broken. Got broken because we started out in Eden, but humanity didn't do too well there. And then not long after that, Cain kills Abel, which introduces violence, and things go downhill from there. There are other things too, this Tower of Babel and all that, but it sort of sets up a broken world. And then, wasn't there a song called Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young? And we've got to,
Get ourselves back to the
you're right? Yes, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young wrote a song, we've got to get back to the garden. That's what it's all about. Getting back to the garden, right? So for Jews, the whole first 5 books of the text of the Hebrew Bible are all about getting back to the promised land, and the whole Hebrew Bible ends getting back to the promised land. Got to get back to the garden, and ultimately you want to get to the garden if you can get to the promised land. Oh, how cool. See, some music does come in very handy. Rodgers and Hammerstein, I don't know who wrote the song. What's the song called? Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Woodstock. Joni Mitchell, I think.
Is it Joni Mitchell? Is that?
Yeah.
Oh. Yasgur's Farm. We're
The
on
name of
Yasgur's.
that
It's
song?
just called Woodstock, isn't it?
Yeah, but we're on Yasgur's Farm, and we've got to get back to, now you have to go listen to that song. Someone could call it up on their phone in a minute, because we're going to do that. Anyway, we're gonna go far afield. So I think that's the opening part. It establishes that the world is broken, and we're gonna see if we can reconstruct the world. That's what we're after. Everybody's after that, reconstructing the world. Now, let's look at the poem. This is a poem by an Israeli poet, written in Hebrew to begin with. I don't know the exact date of it. Clearly written in the year, I think written in the early 50s, actually. The very, very bottom of the text.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
it.
So that's a poem.
I thought there was more on the backside
No,
that
no,
didn't
no,
get
no.
printed.
This is a little poem,
Okay.
written in pencil in the sealed freight car. Here in this carload, I, Eve, with my son Abel. If you see my older boy Cain, the son of Adam, tell him that I...
Missing. Because
Stop
he
it.
was her favorite. Wasn't he? Okay.
Oh, so that I miss him. Okay. Tell me more about the poem. Yes, you could. It's an unfinished sentence. That's the poem. If you see Cain, the son of Adam, tell him that I miss him. Maybe that is what she would have written. How come, by the way, the sentence is incomplete?
How come what?
Why is the sentence incomplete?
Get the midrash right there. You put it
But why is it incomplete?
in. It's incomplete
So you-
because her feelings are incomplete.
There's another reason it's incomplete. Yes, all right, wait.
She was in a seat.
Wait. It's possible it's incomplete because she didn't know what she felt about him. It's possible that if she waited another minute, she would have said, tell him that I miss him. Why else is why is it incomplete? What other reasons could it be for being incomplete?
What'd she say?
Because they reached the.
Can't hear.
They could have reached the death camp.
They're in a seat, what's that?
Didn't you say this was 1950s?
Yeah, but it's in a
Yeah,
sealed car.
but-
I know, I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's written, I go on to tell you,
Sealed
it's written in the 1950s, but that doesn't mean it describes something that happened in the 1950s.
No, it doesn't, but.
No, this is the Holocaust.
Absolutely.
Yes.
She's in a sealed freight car on her way to Bergen-Belsen or Auschwitz or Treblinka. Or they just pulled off and they're there. And maybe she's writing in pencil the last thing she can write. So maybe she doesn't write anymore because she gets yanked out. She doesn't ever finish the sentence.
It's interesting
I
she's
think-
with this.
I think it's.
Wait, go ahead.
I just said, it's interesting that she's with the son who died.
Yes. So what do we make of that? Ugh. What do we do with that one? Notice how she refers to Cain, by the way.
Son of Adam.
Right, and in the book of Genesis, she owns Cain, right? And she's so pleased and too close to him. So in this writing, Dan Pegas, who's the poet, kind of reverses things. And who's she closer to?
Yeah. Abel.
Abel. That's her little boy. It's the second born that she's closer to. And I know he's alive, that's beside the point, but anybody else want to play with this? It's a very, very interesting, yes?
I think it was left blank so that each person could fill it in for themselves.
So you filled it in for us.
I filled it in for me. I didn't fill it in for the rest
Oh,
of you.
you're right. You
Everybody
did say
has a
something different. You
answer.
said people could fill it in for themselves,
Yeah.
not for Eve. That's a very intriguing way you've read it.
Cain represents the murderer, and the people in the boxcars were on their way to be murdered. So it could be referring to, I don't know that my son is out there being a murderer, but maybe he is.
Ooh. Did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Well,
I can't speak up, so.
Oh. I think I just heard that Cain, we know from the Bible, is the murderer, the symbol of the exemplar of a murderer, right? And they're in a freight car about to be murdered. She doesn't know that Cain's not out on the train tracks there about to murder Abel all over. So she might be saying, tell him that I don't know, what would she be saying? Tell him that
We should get along.
why can't we all get along? Tell him that I
Love him. I'm Abel's mother too.
We'll never forget him.
or I will never forgive him.
You get forgiven, depends on the
I
emotion.
submit that she just didn't know what to say. It's too much of a big universal, that she didn't have any idea of what to say
Yeah.
at that moment.
Tell him that I am speechless.
Yeah.
He
Or
was
what? Go ahead.
He was a Holocaust survivor too. I was
Did you just check Dan
Yeah, I'm
Pegas?
just looking at Dan Pegas.
Well, what are his dates? Do you have it there?
It's 1930 to 1986.
Oh, so he lived to be 50,
56.
56.
Pretty young.
So he's a Holocaust, the author is a Holocaust survivor. So tell him that I am speechless, right? I am overwhelmed. Tell him I'm still his mother. Any other conclusions?
I have an idea.
What?
Didn't they say in the first book, what's God's name? I am. Oh, mine. I am part of God. I.
Well,
Ends with I. The poem ends with I.
yeah.
And we're all children and part of God. We are His creation.
Oh,
Maybe she's affirming it's immortal, eternal.
oh, so where is it said that God says that I am? Is,
So he's talking to Moses and asks, if somebody says, what is her name? He says, I am.
right, he says, yeah, sure, yeah, which is usually could be translated, I shall be what I shall be, or I will be what I will be, or I am who I am.
Yeah.
But he could, but at one point he just translates it, shortens it to I am. That is a very, right, tell him that I am, which say tell him that God exists. Which goes back to the top of the page, we're getting, that Midrash doesn't, Dan Pegas had not read this thing, but Cain is the guy who had said there is no God, and maybe she's saying,
Yeah,
even in,
Yes, there's a God. Even at the end. Mom's always right.
there's a poem that's supposed to be, another one of these things, a poem, it's titled, A Poem Found on the Inside of a Freight Car. I haven't thought of it in a while. It's, I believe in God even when the sun is not shining. I believe in God even when feeling it not. I believe in God. There's a third one there.
Even when I'm dying.
Well, no, it doesn't say that, but it would be along this, what you just said, I am, works for that poem in a way. So maybe it's, she wrote on one side, it's the other one wrote on the other side. Okay, let's just try this. Okay, we'll see if we can get this. I believe in God even when the sun is not shining. It's got no author. This is well, here I got a few examples. Oh, it's found in a lot of, you can buy art with it on. Oh, wait, look at this. This good. It's, this person says, here it is. I believe in the sun even when it is not shining. I believe in love even when there's no one there, and I believe in God even when God is silent. This is not it. No. This is somebody who's adapted it, because I know it's when feeling it not is in there. But you could try that one. I believe in God even when the sun is not shining. Just Google it, and you'll probably come up with 14 different people who claim this is it. But try one more, just see if I can get the text. But it's not a dissimilar thing. Come on. It's getting there. All right. Oh, here. Oh, here it is. I believe in the sun. Oh, this one goes. I believe in the sun even when it is not shining. I believe in love even when I cannot feel it. I believe in God even when God is silent. Now that would be, I'm being facetious, this is so serious. That could have been on one side of the freight car, and this could have been on the other side of the freight car. It's really kind of stunning. Any other comments on this poem? I never thought about it so much, but this is really, I'd always thought it would be what Eve would say to him in an angry way, or it could be what anybody might say.
It's interesting that Abel is her son, and Cain is Adam's son
Yes.
in the poem.
We'll spell it out a little bit more.
I'm just observing.
Oh, well, you know, how does that work itself out when you're yelling at your child? Well, they were little. Or look what you're yelling with your spouse.
Yes.
Look what your child just did. Right? You don't own the child when the child's behaving wrong, right? So so I think the poet's done this on purpose. Eve's reclaimed Abel, and Cain's now assigned to Adam. Which almost makes sense, because, no, it doesn't. I was going to say, Adam's the one who, quote unquote, erred in the Garden of Eden, but Eve did. So that doesn't work.
But in the poem, she also says, if you see my older boy.
Oh. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, so it's kind of a reversal from what was in verse 5. Okay.
In the text, she called him a
man.
Yes. It's very different. It's more tender, I think. I don't think, if you see my older boy.
Well, like you said, that she treated him as a man from the get-go.
Right.
A complete grown man, even when he was little.
Yes.
But now, she's reflecting and saying, if you see my older boy, maybe she's found that tenderness for Adam.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to leave you with the poem then. I think it's fascinating that Dan Pagus just decided to write this and to take this story. This is a midrash in a way, because he's imagined the story into another setting, and in a very, very clever and kind of alluring way. And that's our story. So let's conclude with this great quote. Fairy tales are more than true. Oh, no. So are these opening chapters history, fairy tale, or myth? Or fable?
Are myth and fable the same thing?
I don't know. Probably not, or there wouldn't be two separate words.
Isn't a fable something that teaches you something?
History is
So it's a myth.
I'd say it's a fable. It teaches you a lesson. It teaches you a direction to go. It teaches you about the do's and don'ts.
I'm going with myth.
Me too.
Fable, why would you go with? Fable does do exactly what does happen here, but I'm wary of the word fable because Aesop writes fables. You know what? And I'm going to try this one on for you, that this stuff is mythic. These stories are myths. Because I think myths are fables written to explain the large existential issues that we confront. Like Aesop's fables have to do with you shouldn't be jealous, or you shouldn't steal from your brother or something. Like they're little mini stories. This stuff is major. These 11 chapters deal with the key existential questions. How do we get here? Why are we here? How come it looks the way it does? It's like huge. So these are mythic kinds of matters.